Have you ever noticed how your mind starts to unravel the moment the room goes completely quiet? Total silence isn't just an absence of noise, it is a physiological event that forces your brain to create its own reality. In 1954, psychologist Donald Hebb conducted a series of sensory deprivation experiments at McGill University. He paid students to lie in soundproof rooms, wearing translucent goggles and gloves to restrict their physical sensations. Within 24 hours, the participants began to hallucinate. Their brains, starved of external input, started manufacturing phantom sights and sounds to compensate for the lack of stimulation. They saw dogs, processions of squirrels, and geometric patterns. When you stop talking to the world, your brain stops processing the world and starts processing itself. This is the silence effect. When there is no human voice to anchor you, your brain undergoes a process called top-down processing. Usually, we use bottom-up processing, where our senses take in information from the environment and send it to the brain to be decoded. But in total isolation, the brain reverses the flow. It projects internal expectations, memories, and anxieties onto the blank canvas of your reality. Think about the last time you spent an entire day without speaking to another person. Did you find yourself rehearsing arguments in your head? Did you start narrating your actions out loud just to break the tension? This isn't just boredom. It is a biological survival mechanism. Humans are hardwired for social feedback. Our brains are essentially prediction machines that rely on other people to calibrate our behavior. When we don't have that mirror, when nobody talks back to us, our internal model of the world begins to drift. In a study published in the journal Nature, researchers found that even short-term social isolation activates the same regions of the brain as physical hunger. When you haven't spoken to anyone in 48 hours, your brain literally sends out a craving signal for human connection. It's like a neurological hunger pang. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for complex decision-making and logic, begins to lose its sharpness. This is why solitary confinement is considered one of the most brutal forms of psychological punishment. In 2013, a study on prisoners in California's Pelican Bay State Prison showed that inmates in long-term isolation suffered from chronic paranoia, panic attacks, and severe cognitive impairment. Without the interrupt signal of other people's voices, their thoughts became recursive. They fell into thought loops, where the same distressing memory or idea played over and over again like a broken record. But what happens when you introduce silence into your daily life by choice? There is a distinction between social isolation and solitude. When you choose to be quiet, your brain shifts into a different gear. This is the default mode network, or DMN. When you stop talking and stop listening to external voices, the DMN lights up. This is where your brain processes your sense of self. It is where you integrate past experiences and plan for the future. In 2013, regenerative biologist Inki Kirste was studying the effects of noise on mice. She used silence as a control group. She discovered, purely by accident, that the silence induced the growth of new cells in the hippocampus. That is the area of the brain linked to memory, emotion, and learning. The silence wasn't just empty, it was allowing the brain to physically repair itself. So, silence is a double-edged sword. Too much, and your brain begins to hallucinate and obsess to stay stimulated. Just enough, and it repairs your memory and clarifies your sense of self. The problem in our modern world is that we have become terrified of the silence. We carry digital companions in our pockets at all times. We listen to podcasts, music, and social media feeds the moment we feel the slightest bit of quiet creeping into our day. We are running away from the silence effect because we are afraid of what our brains might say when we finally let them speak. We have traded the deep, meditative, and regenerative power of silence for a constant stream of external input. By doing so, we've made our brains weaker at handling introspection. We have forgotten how to sit with our own thoughts without feeling the need to distract ourselves. Think about your own life. How many hours a day do you spend consuming information versus simply existing in the quiet? If you cannot stand to be alone with your own mind, it suggests that you have become a stranger to yourself. The next time the room goes silent, don't reach for your phone. Don't put on a podcast. Don't look for a voice to drown out your own. Sit there. Let your brain reach into the darkness and pull out those subconscious patterns you've been ignoring. The hallucination might be the fear, but the clarity is the result. Silence is not the absence of life, it is the amplification of your own existence. If you don't talk to yourself, eventually, your brain will start making up things just to fill the space. But if you learn to master the silence, you might finally hear the one voice you've been trying to tune out your entire life, your own. What will you choose to listen to when the world finally stops talking?